My name's Barbara Bloemink. I turned 70 this year, and I'm delighted to be a glorious broad.
Well, we were just talking about ageism and careers and women and how they kind of force you to leave the workforce at 65. You want to tell me about your experience?
Well, I find that ridiculous because there's a wonderful saying, I think by Dorothy Sayers, that when a woman is done with being a woman, that is having kids and being a traditional wife, there's no more powerful force on earth. And it's true. Once we reach our late 60s and 70s, we are at our best if we're lucky enough to be healthy. We know more than we've ever known, we're more experienced, and yet that's at the point the job market in our country asks us to leave. They want to get rid of us. And we're better able to do work, whatever our professional job happens to be, than at any other point in our life. But certainly in the art museum world, where I was for 30 years as a museum director all around the United States, all the directors, men and women, are fired or let go or eased out of our jobs for young 20 and 30-year-old museum directors who don't know anything.
Wow. So is that what happened to you?
Well, it was sort of let know that, I would be retired soon. It was retirement age.
Yes.
60, 65. And I, right now, would be better at fundraising, would be more confident, able to tell donors why it would be good to give money to the arts. I would be better able to find great artists, to put together exhibitions, to run an institution, to inspire a staff than at any other point in my life. And I know that's true of every other 60 and 70-year-old. And that's true in corporate jobs, that's true as lawyers, that's true as bankers. When else do you know as much as you know when you've accumulated all these decades of knowledge and experience? And that's right when in our country we're told, sorry, you're too old now.
Wow. Well, let's talk about you. Did it break your heart to leave that industry?
No, I actually found the art world very corrupt. When I started in the 70s, museums were all about the art. It was all about the curators who loved the art, board members were people who bought art because they collected it, and about the 1990s everything changed and it all became about money. People bought art because of the price tag, because it gave them prestige, and now all the ethics about the museum world that I learned when I started museums in the 80s are all completely discarded. There are no ethics. In fact, the art world is the only billion-dollar industry in the world that has no regulations.
Wow.
So you hear about forgeries and corruption in the art world all the time. And everyone thinks it's so elite and elegant and wonderful, and it's a shame because they're talking about the creative masterpieces of human beings, and yet it's full of corruption, chaos, robberies, forgeries, and problems.
So by the time this happened for you, you were ready.
I was ready to leave. So it was good timing. It's just very frustrating to see so many of my colleagues and myself to be retired when there are so many things we could do otherwise, but there's no job market for all of our skills.
So let's talk about reinvention. The word is overused, but I did look at all that you have done, like writing a play. Well, you tell me, what are you up to now?
Okay. When I left the art world, I went through a whole year figuring out what the hell else was I going to do. I have all this energy.
Yeah.
I'm very smart. I'm healthy. What was I going to do for the next 30 years of my life? And I thought about what had I always wanted to do deep down and had never tried. And I realized I love attention and I love getting in front of people. So I went around to the acting schools in New York and I auditioned. And they said, Barbara, you're going to be all around 20-year-olds. And you got to deal with that. And I thought, okay. So I put myself back in Stella Adler Acting Conservatory, and after 6 months, the major acting teacher said, Barbara, I'm going to take you out of this conservatory and create this advanced program just for you. So we did, which was wonderful. And
so in other words, you took to it. You were good.
I took to it. I loved it. And so since then, I've been in lots of plays, 2 small movies. One was in the Chelsea Film Festival, and I'm having a blast. And then I also decided to write a play. I was the director of the Guggenheim Museum and the Venetian Casino, which was a riot. I say that running an art museum and a casino is like being a nun trying to hold on to your virginity in a room full of thugs. So I wrote a play.
You were in Vegas.
Yes. And the play was actually produced in the New York Theater Festival last year with actors. It was on for a week. So that was very gratifying. And I wrote a book on an artist that I'd worked on for my PhD dissertation. And I thought it's an art history book. It won't sell very well. And the first edition of 2,000 books sold out in 4 months. And the New Yorker called it one of the best 16 books of the year. So I just keep trying new things while I'm retired and figuring, you know what? I'm going to make a list of all the things I always wanted to do, like skydiving and rappelling off a waterfall and all these things people don't think 70-year-old women can do. Ooh. And I'm going to do them.
Well, I'm going to ask you something because you seem superhuman now. Did you hit a low spot before you came to this, rediscovery?
Oh, listen, I cried and was depressed for a year.
Yeah.
I found a great young therapist who said, Barbara, we're not going to talk about your past.
Yeah.
We're going to sit and we're going to talk about what you really want to do. Not what you're supposed to do.
Yes.
Not what people have told you to do. Not what you think you should do. But in your heart, the dreams, the things you never thought you could do,
Oof.
the things that you never even told yourself you really want to do before you die. And it took a long time. And I still have moments where I get very depressed thinking, why can't I still run something? Why doesn't the world want to pay me anymore to be the head of something, to run something? I could do this. Or I see a big museum exhibition where I know I could do it better. And I have a problem. I can't go to art museums anymore because I see all the problems. But I have to let that go and realize I'm not that person anymore. I have a whole new life. That was some other young woman. She had a great life, an interesting life, a hard life, but now I'm having a whole new chapter. And this is a chapter I'm choosing exactly what I want. I met an extraordinary man at age 61. I worked hard and he worked hard to find a way to find each other the right way, and we got married 2 years ago. It was true love for the first time in my life.
Wow. I'm going to ask you for advice.
Okay.
We have a lot of women your age and younger in our community, but what do you suggest women do when they get thrown out of their jobs and say, you're not worthy?
Listen, I was fired once.
Yeah.
And I was devastated. And I think everybody has some point. And I was talking to my husband about this the other day. You cannot reach a brilliant moment without also having a brilliant failure.
Yeah.
That's the way life is. It happens to all of us. And I think courage is picking yourself up stronger than you fell. It hurts. I go in the back of my closet and scream into a pillow as loud as I can.
Yeah.
And then you wake up the next morning and you have to go, you know what? It happened. now how do I come up stronger the next time?
Yeah. So you definitely on the job experience ageism.
Everything. I experienced board members touching me inappropriate where I had to jab them, but I needed to keep the job because Me Too didn't exist.
Yes.
I experienced ageism. I experienced board members telling me I was a feminist, and I knew the minute they said that I wasn't going to get the job.
Yes.
It's terrible being a woman. Still, women museum directors make 30% less than male museum directors on average. We're second-class citizens in this country. We just are. There still isn't equal right amendment in the Constitution for women. If you look, it's not there, and women are not standing up to vote for it. Why not?
Yeah.
But, you've got to pick yourself up and be stronger. When I was young, I was shy and depressed, and I thought I was ugly. Took me a long time. I am 70 and I'm gorgeous, right? I am. Look at me.
You are,
right?
girl.
And I'm great, and I'm happy. The happiest years of my life are 60s because I didn't give a fuck what anyone thought of me anymore. And I promise you, your happiest time starts happening if you are lucky enough not to have a disease or some tragedy. Your happiest time's in your 60s because you wake up and you realize you don't care what other people think. So you've just got to pick yourself up and keep going till you get there.
So though you do and are affected by ageism, at 60 it's just like, fuck it, I'm going to reinvent.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because you start realizing there isn't that much time left. So who cares what other people think? I've got to do what I want to do, and to hell with everybody else. If they're toxic, walk away, because I don't have time. Time becomes more precious at 65, 70 than money, than what people think. Do every moment, do what you want. Walk away unless people make you feel good. Precious friends are the ones who make you feel good about yourself, who you want to be around. Make yourself laugh whenever possible, because time is running out. So why not?
So let's talk about balance. I would imagine in your interesting work life, there may have been no balance for your personal life. Tell me about that.
Yeah. I thought I was ugly and was very shy for a lot of my youth and young years, and didn't really have a date in high school and college. So when I finally in graduate school, late, started in my 30s, I've married. It lasted a year and a half, and then I was single for a long time, and then I started a series of being with men and becoming engaged to them and leaving them for jobs because I was extremely ambitious. So I was engaged 5 times, and I left every single one of them for a job.
Yeah.
And I married twice, and thought I was in love, but wasn't in love enough not to leave them when a great museum director job came. And was lonely, but wanted to be the best, and wanted great jobs, and wanted to be respected in the museum world, which I was.
Yes.
And then when I left, I realized what I wanted was a partner. I wanted a man who was as strong as I was, who I could trust, who was sexy as hell, who was funny. And I went online and was very careful and met some people, and then on one site, first day, met a guy, second date, we knew, and put in a hell of a lot of work over 8 years till now it's I just got knocked off my feet. I figured out what true love was.
Oh, how lovely. So, I'm curious, why did you decide to marry at this stage?
It's interesting. Last night was our anniversary, 2 years of marriage, and we talked about that. And Michael had not originally wanted to get married, and I sort of said we get married or we don't go forward. And I said to him, why in the end does it make a difference to you that we're married? Because he said it did. And he said, because it's a commitment we made in front of all of our friends out loud. And I said, that's why it mattered to me, was to know when we were sick, one of us was sick or one of us was dying, that the other one would be there. And it just made a slight difference. We did not have to do it. He has kids. I never wanted kids at all, again, because I was very ambitious and I wanted adventures. But there was just something for me that I needed, that sense that he would always be there.
Nice. So, when you look back at your, let's say, 24-year-old self, knowing what you know now, what would you change? What would you do different? What would you tell her?
Oh, I had so many things. She was so different. I would say, get out of your room and go smile at people. Just pretend you're not shy and scared and insecure, and just go smile and talk to people. Be friendly and they'll be friendly back. Don't be so worried what people think of you. Just put your shoulders back and walk into a room like you're self-confident, and people will think you are. Don't worry what people think of you so much.
I like that. And can that younger self teach you anything today as the 69-year-old woman you are?
Oh my.
Maybe not.
No, she was too sad and scared and vulnerable. I think she'd be shocked at who she turned into.
So tell me about this new career.
Well, I love attention and I love acting. Acting is letting myself be the artwork instead of, as I always spent my whole life talking about other people's artwork. It's getting to, theater is moments of humanity at its most extreme. And I get to find in myself all these characters, good, evil, strong, sad, weak, miserable, happy, joyous, and give them to the audience. And say some of the most loved words ever written, from Shakespeare to Martha and Virginia Woolf to opioid addicted, nasty, racist mothers. I get to play all those different things and move an audience so that when I come out afterwards, the audience, I get hugged and thanked, and that is a great privilege, especially for someone who loves attention.
And did you have a clue when you were younger that you might want to do this?
No. Although, unlike other art historians who get up and they read their papers, I never read a paper. I would just get up and talk.
Yeah.
And I know, like, I could get an audience's attention like that.
Yes.
And I just somehow knew that I would just start talking and I would somehow capture the idea and be able to come up, answer the idea that I was trying to get across, and then have an ending and have the audience's attention.
Yeah.
So somehow I knew that I was a performer.
Tits up.
Yeah, that's something that I do try to tell all young women
Tell
because
us.
so many of us are insecure.
Yes.
I mean, for so much of my life, when I was a museum director, I could always walk into a room saying, "Hi, I'm the museum director." But take me to a cocktail party, and I just sort of stood against the wall, and I could no more walk up to a group of people and talk to them than I would just leave. And I've realized, since I turned 60, that that's ridiculous. Confidence is the way you carry yourself.
Yes.
And that women, we all walk, and we're sort of taught to be good girls and not to look up, to kind of look at the floor, to not look anyone straight in the eye. And I realized, and this is what I tell young women, walk strong, confident, put your shoulders back, your tits up in the air, hold your head up, and walk proudly, tits up, into the room, and everybody will notice you.
How did this metamorphosis happen for you from a shy kid to who you are now? You told me about that year off, but that's after a huge success.
But part of it was my job helped by having a professional role. And because I was so good at school, but so bad at being social and not making friends and always just studying. I was a little nerd. I was the ultimate nerd. I would hide in the library. But once I became higher and higher in my job, I developed this persona. It's a little bit like I was kind of the poor kid, but I looked at the rich kids and I figured out how to dress. And I eventually got the blonde hair. And I went to thrift stores and I bought the expensive clothes. And now I look like a Fifth Avenue lady, and people all think, oh, she's wealthy. Well, I wasn't.
Yes.
But I taught myself. So I created a persona, acting basically before I was acting. And I taught myself how to look confident. The problem was when I left the profession, I was devastated because I didn't know who I was going to be if I wasn't a museum director anymore. And that's why I went into this huge dive of, oh my God, what am I going to do for the next 30 years if I'm not in the art world? Who am I going to be? What am I going to do?
I have to say, I completely relate. I went from being a big shot in design to my career was up.
Right. You think, what do I do? Who am I now if I don't have this title? Well, who am I?
Yes.
And so much of my identity was my job. And that's where you have to do this deep, hard soul searching and figure out, forget titles or what you think or you're forget the word supposed to and figure out what you deep down want, what you want in your soul, and do that.
And I think it's also wise what you said before. That was another chapter.
Yes, I believe life is lived in chapters. Margaret Mead, the anthropologist, said something funny once. She said, a woman should have 3 marriages. The first one to get away from your parents, the second one to have children, and the third one just for yourself. And, life is like that. There are chapters, but the last one is, in a way, the one that's most important because it's the one where you really realize time is limited, and it forces you to say, I'm going to choose. I'm going to decide. I'm not going to let anyone tell me anymore what to do. And that can be so great and so powerful.
It's true. It's true. And that's where choosing your job, choosing to be an actor, me choosing to be a writer,
Right.
instead of waiting for the next gig.
Right. for many, I understand, finances
Yes.
mean they can't just go do whatever they want, but you can do it then in a small way. You can choose the people you want to be around.
Yes.
You can walk away from toxic people. You can choose to take up some hobby. You can choose to go places. You can choose to spend your time in nature or have flowers or
Yes.
play or...
It doesn't have to be the big
Right.
things.
It doesn't have to be huge, but spend your time every day thinking, what will give me pleasure today? Instead of, oh, what do I have to do today? Do those and then give yourself every day something that gives you pleasure.
Talking about the difference between men and women.
I think one of the things is men get their idea to have a career and they do that career, and then when they retire, a lot of them I've heard of, like my father, they die soon after they retire.
Yes.
Because they lose their energy.
Yes.
They don't have an identity afterwards. Or some take up sports like golf or whatever. Some do volunteer work, but a lot of them just fade away.
Yes.
Because-
But we do the work.
Yes. Women, more and more especially, are kind of saying, wait a minute, I still have all this energy. Women come into their power in their 50s. Men after 60 sort of peter out a lot. And I certainly found that dating, I must say, that's sort of frightening, was when I was online and I was in my 60s, the men kind of were a little falling apart and the women were in great shape.
I completely relate.
My husband is a year younger than me, and I started putting my age younger than I was so I could meet men who were in better shape and were athletic and did things. So I think it's just different. Somehow women, we come into our own.
It's true. There's a lot of talk about menopause and how menopause affects you. For me personally, I came to life sexually after menopause. Let's talk about that. Sexually.
That I just have the biggest fun. I go to retail stores where I'm trying on clothes, and I go up to young women behind counters, and I just say to them out of the blue, do you know what? I'm 70 or I'm 68, and I just want you to know you can have screaming 5-minute orgasms in your late 60s.
And they don't believe it,
No,
but they need
look
to.
at me like, what is this woman saying to me? And then they think about it for a minute and they go, oh, thank you.
Yes.
And I say, I'm telling you this because women don't dry up and get old. You don't have to worry. You find the right partner.
Yes.
If someone's taught him or her correctly, or you teach them correctly.
Yes.
But don't worry, you are not gonna stop having amazing, great orgasms. In fact, if you're not 35 yet, your body doesn't even know how to have an orgasm yet.
It's true.
But wait, you can easily have screaming orgasms in your late 60s. And then they inevitably go, well, thank you, that's amazing, that's great to know. And then I walk out and I think, well, that was interesting. They had an interesting day today, you know?
Well, what about you and your libido? Did it change?
It changed because I met this amazing man, and he listens, and he does exactly what I needed.
Yes.
And he waits.
Yes.
And he's generous, and he doesn't just do what his part. He waits to do me first.
Yeah.
And I have screaming orgasms that are multiple and go on for a long time, and he has to hand me the pillow so we don't wake up the people upstairs. 45, I suddenly discovered I had breast cancer because I went through a mammogram and a sonogram, and they said, "Oh, you have a cyst, but it's a benign cyst." And they said, "Do you want to get it aspirated?" And I said, "Sure." And they said, "Oh, they just pump a little, they just stick a needle in it and they'll get rid of the bump." And so I went to get it aspirated, and the doctor said, "That's not a cyst, that's cancer, and it's malignant." And that's how I found out I had breast cancer. So I had a lumpectomy, and I had chemotherapy, and I lost all my hair, and I had radiation, and I had 5 years of tamoxifen, so they got rid of all my estrogen, and I only had stage 1, I didn't have lymph nodes, so that was 23 years ago, and now they wouldn't do any of that, which means that now I have all these bad after effects of the chemo, but it put me into menopause at 45, which is interesting because I had some of the effects, but interestingly enough, I didn't have most of the bad effects of menopause.
Yeah.
And so I would say my libido came right back, and I'm still able to have amazing orgasms. And luckily my husband had his testosterone checked, and he was told that at 68 he's still like a teenager. So we're very lucky.
Feel about an open marriage? Does that appeal to you at all?
No, because it took me so long to find a real love that it wouldn't appeal to me to touch anybody else. I have to turn me on, the man has to really want me, and I know my husband wants me. So why would I want anybody else?
Do you consider yourself at a selfish level?
A selfish level? No, I don't think that one can be selfish unless you're mean. I think treating yourself, I really like myself now. I can't say I used to. So I'm not mean to anyone. I am not forgiving. If someone is unkind or mean to me, they're gone. But I don't take anything that's not warranted for me, but I take what I like and what I want out of life, so long as it doesn't hurt anybody else. And I'm going out and getting everything I can that gives me pleasure, but those aren't material things anymore because I don't need them anymore.
Isn't that interesting how that does change?
Yes, it changes completely. All of a sudden, you say, what do you want? I want adventures.
Yes.
I want time with my loved ones.
Yes.
I want to experience and enjoy wonderful things, dancing, flowers, great food, wonderful new travels, time with my husband, great sex with him. But I don't want any more clothes or jewelry or houses or things.
No more stuff.
No more stuff.
That changed for me also during COVID. It really hit home.
Yes.
I don't need stuff.
Right. All of a sudden, I don't need most of my clothes and my high heels and.
Although hold on to that red dress.
Yeah, I have a lot of red dresses I'm keeping, but mostly I wear jeans a lot and comfort. I think comfort became a big deal, but I think the world changed.
So, do you give a fuck about what people think of you? And when did it change?
No. I enjoy the fact that I have all these young people who think I'm amazing and they're not mother and they come to me for advice. I love that people are amazed that I'm 70 and I have all this energy because I'm redoing what they think 70 is.
Yes.
I think that's great because I want to turn their ideas upside down. But No, I don't care, and that gives me great freedom, and I wish I could give that to young people. I wish I could make them not care, because I know that's a huge hindrance to life.
It is.
That hurts so much of your life when you're young, is worrying about what other people think. And it didn't change until basically I was 60.
I'm with you. I have absolutely no patience with women, I will say our age, but 50 up, talking about turning invisible. Let's talk about that.
I am never going to be invisible. I refuse. That is a bunch of shit. You're only invisible when you want to be. It's like, yeah, I can wear no makeup and a hood and sneak around and be invisible, but that's only if I choose to be.
Yes.
Why would I want to be invisible in this world? I am a person. I am of value. I matter. So look here, I am.
So do you feel you have any regrets in life?
Oh, sure. I regret all the people I let intimidate me. I regret that I took a couple jobs without checking out who was my boss first, because I never would have taken that job if I'd done a little research. But you know what's funny about regrets? If you didn't do what you'd done, you never would be where we were. So I wouldn't be in this fabulous place I am if I hadn't made all the mistakes I made. That's why you can't really regret all the catastrophes, right?
It's true.
When I got breast cancer, I got a short wig and a long wig because I was bald. And then I'd forget meeting a friend with the short wig, and then the next day meeting them with the long wig, and they didn't know they were wigs. And they freaked out because suddenly I had long hair in a day. But the breast cancer made me realize that some friends weren't friends. And that was a good thing in some ways.
You mean they got uncomfortable?
They got uncomfortable and they didn't come and see how I was, even though they knew it, or they were unkind about it. Or were selfish and came to sit with me but only talked about themselves. And so I learned a lot. And so it wasn't necessarily a terrible thing. And now when I see someone who's going through it, I go up to them and I say, see, I lost all my hair. It comes back. You know, I'm 23 years a survivor. So I pass on what I can. So it wasn't entirely a bad thing. And sometimes I even forget I had it. So terrible, we all have tragedies and things that we regret, but it's a whole accumulation in life.
So now you're happily married. I want to ask, do you think good sex and love can commingle?
I think they have to. For me.
Yeah.
Not when I was younger. When I was younger, there were phases where I kind of thought, okay, I'd gotten divorced and I thought, oh, I'm going to be like a guy. I'm going to have sex and not get involved with the guy, and I'm just going to, not worry about it, not worry about my feelings. But as I got to my 40s and 50s, I realized that for me, I think sex is visible. They look, and that's what turns them on. The body, the breast, the butt, whatever they get turned on by, it's a visible thing. That's why Playboy magazines and stuff turn them on. Women don't, I think, get turned on as much by the visible. I think for us, it's an emotional feeling, and it's also when we feel they're turned on by us, that turns us on. It's a mixture of emotional and a mutual arousal, and that has a lot to do with the feeling. So I don't get turned on unless I love her. So I'm not going to have a great orgasm unless I feel in love with the guy. In fact, if Michael and I are arguing, I'm not going to have an orgasm. So for me, I've got to be feeling pretty loving.
You look back at your life, when would you say you were the most sexually free?
Now. Absolutely now. Because Michael and I, there's such trust. There's absolute trust.
Yes.
In fact, what's so lovely is Michael is 6'4" and gorgeous, big blue eyes, biceps that you want to bite, great body. And when we go to parties and all these 45 to 50, 60-year-old women go up to him, Michael immediately looks over at me and he goes, I'm with her. So there's love, trust, knowing each other, and he's great. And he listens, and there's generosity. So there's no fear. And there's the love. So yes, it's just natural, easy, loving, and you know each other's bodies so well.
So what's next? What's next on your agenda? You gave me a next list and it was pretty hot.
We just are making a list of adventures we want. And I'm gonna play Martha in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf in a theater in Staten Island.
Juicy.
I'm gonna be the nastiest, most evil Martha you ever saw. And I don't know, that's the hardest thing now, is figuring out things that we both want to do while we're still healthy enough to do them.